The expo hall is now home to all manner of alien craft, from Esperia, Aopoa and the Banu, providing some really interesting flight and gameplay opportunities. There are ships here you don't want to miss. But before we get started, it's worth pointing out that the current and planned alien ships focus on combat almost exclusively, and so none of them have room for cargo, with the exception of the Banu merchantman, which we'll be having a look at a little later on. The Prowler earned its name during the Tavaran Wars, where the UAE Navy came to fear its ability to land shock troops on their capital ships undetected and then recover them safely under fire. I love how the bird of prey shape as it lands kind of becomes almost like a dragon using its wings to walk, and the wings actually deploy and double as cover for the troops as they jump out. The solid metal canopy at the front provides extra protection for the pilot, who still has an impressive view thanks to these really unique screens on the inside. And each doorway has an air shield, so the doors can be open and yet the atmosphere on the Prowler remains intact. Instead of seats in the main bay, there are standing restraints so the troops inside can fire out hot LZ style. The Prowler's got room for 16 troops and 2 crew, and there's just this really unique feel about it, so even if all you do is call it up in the hangar and have a look around, I really recommend you get your hands on this. The Cartual is a Xi'an light fighter with a really unique look and some great details in terms of how the cockpit opens and how you climb in. In its landing mode it resembles some sort of insect, whilst in flight it has a really interesting alien profile as you would expect. Unsurprisingly for a light fighter, it's only got room for a single crew member, though it really does pack a punch for something of that size with 2 size 4 hardpoints. Be warned though, as cool as that silhouette is, it does make for an awful lot of surface area when you're getting shot at. I gotta admit, I've got a real soft spot for Aopoa's Nox and Nox Q. They're basically open-topped racers, and the only difference really is the Q's got this really nice brushed steel effect and is ever so slightly slower for some reason. They're more kind of the things that you're going to see people on travelling around their day-to-day, as well as the racing purpose that they're built for, but there is something great about having it in the back of your ship just in case you need to do a little bit more low-key manoeuvring around, or if you just want to flex with how cool your personal transport is. Whilst Esperia make the blade and the glaive that are currently on show in the expo hall, they are originally a Vandal design. Vandal are the nasty alien race that you're going to be fighting a lot in Squadron 42, which is the single player side of Star Citizen, and they've really set the tone for the race. They're organic, they're very brutal and sharp and aggressive in appearance. They look fantastic. They're also inside, not flown in a seat like a normal human fighter. They're more kind of posed over like a superbike, hunched forward and very animalistic in the way they're flown. The blade is a light fighter, the glaive is a medium fighter, so you would expect to see blades in the vanguard as scouts or first wave assault craft, and the glaive following that up. There's also a ship, the Scythe, but as we understand it, that's not flyable today. The Banu Defender is the only fighter that's released today that has room for 2 crew, and it's got this really unique kind of hunched over almost gorilla posturing style when it's landed. When it's taken off it's a little bit more sleek and has a lot of punch to it. It's got 4 weapon mounts as well as room for 8 missiles. And whilst it hasn't got room for cargo, it does have a fully modelled interior. So if you're doing delivery missions, I'm sure you can find some space to put those boxes down. It's not uncommon for a few ships like this to be assigned to protecting a Banu merchantman, and I guess that means you know which ship we're talking about next. Unless there's a mid-range miracle, the Banu merchantman won't be flyable, unfortunately, but it is, I would suggest, one of the most hotly anticipated ships right now. If you saw the video yesterday, you'll be familiar with the concept of the Privateer, a ship that was converted to be a mobile market. Well, the merchantman was custom built for the job. It has a number of shops in store, each with access to their own cargo space to sell their wares. It's also got an inbuilt negotiating lounge, and you can see, as well as trade deals, merchantmen could possibly use as peaceful envoy vessels. Now, whilst it does have some weapons, it is not built for combat. So where the privateer is kind of free to go where it wants because it's so heavily armed and carries so many vessels, the merchantman's going to need to be a little bit more careful. Now, it can have up to 8 crew, and it has 3,584 SCU of cargo space, which is still a massive amount of room. Expect to see the same sort of hype that we did for the Star Runner when the Banu merchantman finally hits the verse. And then there's the bane of all streamers, YouTubers, the San Tokyo, however you say it. It's another Xi'an fighter, which is designed to be slightly heavier and more powerful than the Cartual, but at the same time not being quite as manoeuvrable. Still one crew member, with unfortunately no cargo space on board. And Esperia will be bringing the Talon and her sister ship, the Talon Shrike. These are Tavarans, so they're the same sort of style and design language as the Prowler. And in terms of how they play in the game, they're designed to strike in packs, or flocks I suppose, just looking at how they're designed. They come in, attack en masse in a swarm, and then back off to do it again. The Talon is more focused on energy and projectile weapons, whereas the Shrike has a massive internal missile system, carrying 20 plus missiles, which is huge for something of its size. There are some really neat design choices here as well, like the idea that instead of an escape pod or an ejection seat, the entire cockpit will detach and become its own armoured escape pod. All being well, we'll see the Talon and the Talon Shrike in patch Alpha 3.12 at the end of this year, although I would expect we'll have the patch go live and then possibly the Talon and the Talon Shrike in a mini patch sometime shortly after. Make sure you keep an eye on the channel at the end of the week. I'm going to have a couple of videos that are going to help you decide where to go next with your Star Citizen journey, as well as information on how I'm going to develop the channel going forward and how often and when my releases will be. Thanks very much for tuning in, guys. See you soon.